I murdered someone. I don't mean I killed someone. I didn't run someone over with my car. It wasn't an accident. I deliberately murdered someone. You have no idea how liberating it is to type that. I wish I could tell someone. I can only imagine the thrill of looking someone in the eye as I tell them. But I digress. I've always been a curious person, and like many people, at least I think many people, I often wondered what it would be like to murder someone. I wondered what it would look like, what it would smell like, what it would feel like, and more importantly, what I would feel like afterwards. These thoughts started becoming more and more prevalent, and the more I thought about it, the more frustrated I would get because I would never know. Last I checked, you can't use curiosity as an excuse for murder. There are consequences. But what if there weren't? There are only consequences if you get caught. Do you know how many murders go unsolved? According to my research, over 6,000 a year, or almost 40% of murders. That doesn't include the thousands of missing person cases that could be murder. Those are actually pretty good odds. That means there's a good chance of not getting caught. And not getting caught means no consequences. Naturally, this got me thinking of how to not get caught. I've watched numerous crime shows on TV and have always thought that they show how to get away with everything, but I knew I needed more information. I started researching actual murder cases and looking at how people got caught. What was it that gave them away? Luckily, I knew enough before doing my research that I shouldn't be doing it at home, or typing this at home. Did you know that most libraries have computers with internet access? And there are a lot more libraries than you think. Sure, it might be a bit of a hassle to drive all over, but I knew that commitment could keep me free. My research led me to realize that in most cases, the evidence leading to someone came from the dead body. So that meant I would have to properly dispose of the body. However, there were plenty of cases where bodies were searched for and found. What if I could eliminate the search? If nobody was missed, there wouldn't be a search. But who wouldn't be missed? Did you know that homeless people frequently visit libraries? That was a pleasant revelation. If someone had no family, friends, or job, there wouldn't be anyone to miss them. This meant I would have to delve into the world of the homelessness. Fortunately, I live close to a large city that has a considerable homeless population. I know it sounds sick and twisted, but it felt like I was on a safari expedition. I had to observe their behaviors, what they did, where they went, how often they interacted with others. I could have done a National Geographic documentary. Sure, it was tedious and time-consuming, but it helped me find him. I found that a number of homeless people live in groups. I will resist the urge to call them herds. That wouldn't work for my purpose since it would be difficult to get someone without being noticed. Plus, there was a small possibility that someone would be noticed as missing. There are a number of homeless that live on the streets, but again, it would be hard to get someone without being noticed. Luckily, there are a number of small wooded areas scattered throughout the city where a number of homeless people sleep by themselves. Those people seem to be the true outcasts. Over time, I noticed that they hardly ever interacted with anyone else and never spent much time in the same areas. They were completely unnoticed. Since I would have to be moving a body, I figured I wouldn't want someone that was big, bulky, and heavy. My guy was definitely on the small side. After watching several wooded areas, I spotted him and started following him. He went to different areas of town each day to look for handouts and never went to any of the local shelters or food banks. He was perfect. Nobody would even realize he was gone. Now, I just had to find where he slept. Looking back, I realized that several aspects of my life had prepared me for this. I grew up in the woods and had military training. This allowed me to be comfortable in the woods, moving without being seen or heard. This allowed me to find his shelter, where he had a sleeping bag and some bushes. I even watched him as he slept one night. Do you have any idea how exhilarating it is to stand over a stranger as they sleep, not knowing you're there? I had my victim and knew how to get to him. Now I could start planning the details. So many details. Particularly how to do it. I figured the messier it was, the more likely some pieces of evidence would be left. As much as I would love to see the spray of blood, I knew that was way too messy to deal with. So I settled on strangulation. That would still give me the sensation of murdering someone and allow me to feel their life slip away. I still had to determine how to transport and dispose of the body. Once I had all the details worked out, all that was left was deciding when to do it. During my research, I was able to determine that rain wreaked havoc with crime scenes, and so I would be patient. Fortunately, I didn't have to wait long for rain to come. It was a dark and stormy night. Sorry, I couldn't resist the cliche. It was a dark night, but it was sprinkling. Hardly what you consider to be a storm. I ventured out for what I knew would change my life. I had a small backpack that contained materials I would need. Duct tape, rope, plastic drop cloth, all bought at separate locations and paid for with cash, including the backpack. Watched enough shows to know about receipts. I always thought the cliche about your heart pounding so loud that you worry about it being heard was an exaggeration. I can tell you that it's not. That's exactly how I felt as I moved through the woods. The closer I got to his shelter, the louder my heart pounded. Once I was inside of him, I had to stop. I did my best to calm my heart and slow the adrenaline running through me. I didn't want to rush this. I made sure to stay far enough away so that any noise I made while getting my materials ready wouldn't disturb him. With the rope in my back pocket and a piece of tape ready, I started moving closer to him, eventually straddling over him. I had planned out my movement and gone over it in my head numerous times, but was certain that something would go wrong. So I was extremely thrilled when I was able to drop to my knees and pin him in his sleeping bag while slapping the tape over his mouth in one motion. Seeing his eyes flash open and fill with fear is a sensation that just can't be described. I watched his eyes fill with even more fear as I pulled the rope from my pocket and began wrapping it around his neck. I had put some thought into how to strangle him and came up with a way to be able to go about savoring the moment. I was able to wrap the rope so that I could pull on it while sitting on his chest for maximum leverage. I've heard stories and tales, but once I got the rope in place, I began pulling. Anyone who thinks strangling someone is quick and clean is absolutely wrong. It takes a while. And messy. The body excretes all sorts of stuff as it dies. I'll spare you the details, but it does not smell pleasant. And that's with the help of a sleeping bag containing it. Experiencing the will to live wasn't something I had thought about, but it was an amazing experience. Feeling his body fight to stay alive was actually invigorating and made me appreciate my life even more. I had never really believed that you could watch the life leave somebody's eyes, but you can actually see the moment it happens. You really can see the eyes go dead. I was still reluctant to let go of the rope at that moment because I wanted to be absolutely certain. I held on for a few more minutes. As I slowly let go of the rope, the realization that I just took a life began to sink in. I'm sure that feeling differs from person to person, but for me, it wasn't a religious experience. It wasn't a sexual experience. It wasn't even really a power experience. I actually felt relief. From what, I have no idea. That is probably the best way I can describe it. Again, I know there's stories about savoring the moment, but I figured the longer I was there, the higher the risk. I removed the rope and the tape and put them in the backpack as I pulled out the plastic drop cloth. Having the body in the sleeping bag certainly helped with wrapping it. Not sure I can say him anymore at this point. The cleanup was surprisingly easy, thanks in part to the sleeping bag. Once the body was wrapped, I was able to look around the area. There would still be signs that someone had previously slept there, but I felt confident that wouldn't be a problem, and that someone else would probably move in. I won't be going into any details on how I disposed of the body. How do I know you won't go looking for it? That's not a risk I'm willing to take. I'll just say that I did my research and put a lot of thought into it. It's been 4 days now. I haven't seen anything in the news anywhere. Not even a mention of a missing person. Absolutely nothing. It was an absolutely thrilling experience, although I can feel that sensation slipping away as the days pass. I don't want to lose that feeling. The forecast calls for rain this weekend. I hope it does.